made thousands of small transfers of Pi just within a couple days. And these transactions don't seem to be linked to any types of real goods and services and are indicative of an attempted sale.
All right, so you sent us a ton of stuff on Pi Network, which I'm guessing means you want to go beyond just like dipping our toes in the water.
Yeah.
You're ready for like the full deep dive.
Yeah, it seems like Pi Network is, well, it's everywhere you look these days. Every day there's a new headline. Is it the future of cryptocurrency? Is it going to make crypto accessible to, well, everyone with a smartphone? There's a lot of buzz, but there are also some big question marks.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the thing that's so striking right off the bat is just the scale of it. I was looking at one of the articles you sent, and it mentioned over 47 million users. That's huge. That's like the entire population of Spain and Portugal combined.
It's really interesting to see something like this try to scale. I mean, on the one hand, this level of adoption, it's what every crypto project dreams of. But on the other hand, actually turning those millions of potential users into active participants on a real, fully functional blockchain, I mean, that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems like, one of the things we keep hearing about is this whole KYC bottleneck. Apparently only about, let me see here, about 5.6 million. Out of those 47 million have actually completed the KYC process, which that seems like a pretty big gap. I mean, what's the deal with that? KYC seems like, it's a pretty standard thing. Right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that's easy to underestimate, especially when you're dealing with a global user base like Pi Networks. It's not just about verifying someone's name. There are different regulations in every country. You have to prevent fraud. And of course, you have to make sure that data is secure for millions of users, all while trying to make it, user-friendly and easy to do.
So this isn't just a Pi Network problem. This is something that, even the big players have to deal with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, even giants like Binance and Coinbase. I mean, they're mainstays now, but they had their own, KYC growing pains early on. And it's interesting, they both ended up going with kind of a tiered approach, which is something that, as far as I know, Pi Network hasn't really done.
And a tiered approach, just so we're clear, that's like...
Yeah, so basically users can get started with basic verification, and they might have like limited functionality, low transaction limits, and then as they want to do more, the verification process gets more stringent.
Okay, that makes sense. So I guess the question is, could Pi Network's approach to KYC, even though it's like, they're trying to be thorough, could it actually be part of the reason for these delays?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's good that they're focused on security and compliance, but it could be creating a bottleneck. And as you can imagine, these delays have real consequences.
Right, because it's like, how many times have we heard Mainnet launch is just around the corner, but then nothing. It feels like we've been hearing that forever.
And those delays, while they are understandable to a point, they can start to, they chip away at a project's credibility. It's like that story of the boy who cried wolf,
Totally, totally. But before we go too far down that road, could you just back up for a second and explain what Mainnet even means? I feel like for people who are new to this whole crypto world, it might not be a term they're familiar with.
Oh, you're right. It's easy to forget that not everyone is deep in the jargon.
Right.
So basically, the mainnet is the final, fully operational version of a blockchain network. So right now, Pi is running on what's called a testnet.
Which is kind of like a testing ground.
Exactly, yeah. It's where the developers can, work out the kinks before they release it to the public.
So the mainnet launch, that's the big moment, where it goes from being a promising prototype to an actual, functional product.
Right, exactly. And that's why these delays are causing such a stir.
Right.
When you have a project like Pi with so many users and such ambitious goals, I mean, every time there's a delay, it makes people question whether they can actually deliver on their promises.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to build a rocket while they're launching it.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And the thing is, the longer they wait, the more chances there are for competitors to, step into the spotlight.
Right, like one of the articles you sent mentioned Chia Network.
Yeah.
And how they could be a real rival, especially because they're also. Focus on this idea of mobile mining.
Yeah, Chia Network is interesting because their whole approach to mining is different. They use storage space instead of processing power, which they say is, way more energy efficient.
Interesting.
And they're really starting to make moves in the mobile mining space. So it's not just about the internal challenges for Pi. They've got competition breathing down their necks.
So it's really a race against time at this point. But I want to go back to those delays for a second, because obviously, people are getting impatient. But beyond just, testing people's patience, what's the real cost of pushing back that launch date again and again?
Well, one of the big concerns is that it erodes trust. Remember EOS? It was this hugely hyped project, raised billions in its ICO, but then the mainnet launch was a mess, tons of delays, technical issues, and they ended up losing a lot of ground to competitors who were just quicker to market.
It really does feel like that sometimes, like you're waiting for that new album, and it's like, nope, sorry, delayed again.
Yeah, and the thing is, the longer these delays go on, the more vulnerable Pi Network becomes to, well, another unfortunate side of the crypto world: scams.
Oh, right. You mean like all those get-rich-quick schemes you always hear about?
Exactly, yeah. Because when you have this much anticipation built up around a project, it's like a magnet for scammers, right?
Yeah.
They want to exploit that. And we've seen it happen, unfortunately. I mean, look at BitConnect or OneCoin. Those were huge, and a lot of people lost a lot of money.
So it's almost like Pi Network is walking this tightrope,
Hmm.
right? On the one hand, they're trying to revolutionize how we think about money and finance. But on the other hand, they're dealing with these, well, these very real human problems.
It's a good point, and it really highlights something that's crucial. For any tech project to succeed, which is that human element, you can have amazing, groundbreaking technology. But if you don't think about the practical concerns, the security risks, the potential for people to, take advantage of the situation, then it doesn't matter how good the tech is.
For sure. And speaking of practical concerns, one thing that kind of jumped out at me when I was going through all the research you sent was Pi Network's roadmap. Or more specifically, like tariffs smooth.
Yeah.
How often it seems to change.
Yes, the ever-evolving roadmap. It's definitely a point of contention, let's say, for people who are following Pi Network.
Yeah, it's like trying to, I don't know, navigate with a compass that keeps spinning.
I get it. I get it. But I think it's important to remember that they are dealing with a lot of moving pieces. I mean, building a technology like this is complex, right? And then
Right.
you've got this constantly changing regulatory landscape. Plus, they have to manage the expectations of, well, millions of users. So some degree of, let's say, flexibility is to be expected.
I guess so, but at what point does flexibility just become uncertainty?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something that, anyone who's considering getting involved with Pi, they really have to wrestle with, because one of the big criticisms you hear is that these shifting timelines, they create this sense of distrust because it's hard to know what's really going on?
Yeah, you start to wonder, are they just making this up as they go along?
Right, exactly. And that perception, whether it's fair or not, it can be really damaging, especially in the crypto world where trust and transparency are, I mean, they're everything.
Totally. Okay, so constantly changing the roadmap, that's definitely
Mhm.
not a good sign. Let's just put it that way. But what about the actual content of the roadmap? Anything in there that kind of raised a red flag for you?
Well, one thing that caught my eye was their initial goal of having 100 decentralized applications, or dApps, ready for mainnet launch, which is, that's ambitious to say the least.
Okay, and dApps are, sorry, just a quick refresher.
Oh, sure. So basically, dApps, you can think of them as the building blocks of a kind of a decentralized internet. They're applications that are built on top of a blockchain like Pi Network. And the idea is that they offer more transparency, security, user control compared to traditional apps.
So like we're talking about decentralized exchanges, social media platforms, even games.
Exactly. Yeah, all sorts of things. And so Pi Network's vision is to have this whole ecosystem of dApps powered by their cryptocurrency. And that's what's supposed to drive the utility and the value.
Okay, I see. So it's all connected. But going back to those 100 dApps, I mean, where do things stand right now?
As of, let me just double check my notes here.
Huh.
As of September 2024, they've got about 40 approved dApps.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a pretty big gap. I mean, what does that tell us about, Pi's progress?
It's hard to say for sure because we don't know that much about their selection process. Like
Wow.
maybe they're having trouble attracting developers, or maybe they're just being extremely cautious about which dApps they approve. It's hard to say.
It's like if you're trying to build a skyscraper, but you only have enough bricks to build, like the first few floors, you have to start wondering if you're ever going to get the rest of the way there.
Right, right. And that uncertainty, it kind of feeds into the biggest question, which is, what's Pi actually going to be worth?
Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question, right? That's
Okay.
all anyone wants to know. But it seems like every time I see an article with a price prediction, it's just like a total shot in the dark.
Well, there's a good reason for that, which is there is no official price for Pi, not yet. Anyone who tells you they know what it's going to be worth is, well, they're probably lying.
Okay, fair enough. But what all the secrecy? Why not just give people like a ballpark figure?
Well, if you listen to Dr. Nicolas Kokkalis, he's one of the founders of Pi Network, he always emphasizes that their focus is on building utility, not speculation.
So they're trying to distance themselves from that whole get-rich-quick mentality.
Exactly, yeah. They want people to see Pi as a real form of digital currency, not just another, speculative asset.
Which is an admirable goal, for
Yeah.
sure. But let's be realistic. The second Pi hits the exchanges, market forces are going to take over, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's where things could get interesting because you've got this huge user base, years of pent-up anticipation. The potential for volatility is huge.
I can already see the headlines. Pi Network skyrockets on day one, followed by Pi Network plummets as early adopters cash out.
Right, like a roller coaster. And that's a very real possibility, and it's something that Pi Network is going to have to manage really carefully. Because that kind of boom and bust cycle, that can scare away serious investors and really undermine their long-term vision.
Yeah, it's exciting for a minute, but you wouldn't want to live on a roller coaster.
Exactly.
And I think it's safe to say that Pi Network is hoping to build something a little more stable than a roller coaster ride.
I would hope so.
But how do you even begin to manage that level of expectation when you have millions of people who are eagerly awaiting their piece of the pie?
Well, that's where the community, which is arguably Pi Network's greatest asset, could also become their greatest liability.
Okay, let's unpack that. What role does the community play in all of this?
So a strong, active community, it can be incredibly powerful in the crypto world.
Yeah, I mean, look at Bitcoin, look at Ethereum. They've both benefited enormously from having these passionate communities that are advocating for their adoption.
Exactly. That grassroots support, it generates buzz, it attracts developers, it can even influence the direction of the project.
So it's like having this army of volunteers who are out there.
Yeah.
Spreading the word and building excitement.
In a way, yeah, but it's also a double-edged sword.
How so?
Because a passionate community can also be prone to, hype, speculation, unrealistic expectations.
So it's like, yeah, you want that enthusiasm, you want that energy, but you also have to be able to kind of, keep it in check.
Exactly, yeah. Pi Network's leadership, they need to find a way to harness that enthusiasm, that's key, but they also have to be really clear and consistent with their communication, especially, I think, when it comes to, addressing the challenges, being upfront about the things that aren't going perfect.
Right, transparency is key, especially in this space. And that actually brings us back to you, the listener. Because you've clearly done your research, you're engaging with this, it's a complex topic, and you're looking for insights. So I guess my question is, as you're learning more about Pi Network, what are the things you should be keeping in mind?
Well, I think the most important thing is to remember diversification. Never put all your eggs in one basket, right? Especially with a project like this, where there are still a lot of unknowns. Explore other cryptocurrencies, get a feel for the market as a whole, and make your decisions based on, your own risk tolerance.
Because even with all the research in the world, you can't predict the future, especially not in crypto.
Exactly, yeah. And that's why it's so crucial to stay informed. And be careful about where you're getting your information from. If someone's promising you guaranteed returns, or they claim to have some kind of inside scoop, be very, very skeptical. Stick to the official announcements from Pi Network. And, check out some reputable crypto news sites.
For sure. So speaking of information, and maybe this is me just being impatient, but do we have any sense of when Pi Network might actually launch?
If I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
But if I had to guess, based on everything we've talked about, I'd say mid-2025 at the earliest, and even that's not a sure thing.
Okay, so patience is key here. This isn't about getting rich quick.
Yeah.
It's about, maybe watching something potentially revolutionary unfold.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And even if Pi Network does launch successfully, remember, there's no guarantee that the price is going to, go through the roof. The value of any cryptocurrency, it all comes down to what can you actually do with it, how many people are using it, and is the underlying technology sound?
It's a good reminder that building something truly groundbreaking, it takes time, it takes resilience, and I think it takes a good dose of
pragmatism.
For sure. Well, on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap up this deep dive. It's been so fascinating and honestly a little perplexing at times to really dig into this with you. But until next time, listener, keep those thinking caps on and stay curious.
Yeah, this type of behavior provides no help in establishing a healthy Pi ecosystem or building a foundation for Pi's economy. Instead, they endanger the existing and future pioneers with potential losses of money and the project as a whole by tarnishing our reputation. In conclusion, we have learned two major lessons from in-app transfer pilots so far. First, enabling people to transfer Pi should be paired with healthy ways to spend the currency and drive demand for Pi. Second, the Pi ecosystem needs a systematic approach or platform to support applications that scale the type of healthy transactions listed by Vince just now, and address the logistic headaches that arise when trying to transact with pioneers all over the world, or generally people all over the world. That concludes our update for today. What do you think of these findings and assessments? Please let us know by tapping below to join the topic. We look forward to your input.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
One other example of a sale of Pi is this example here, which shows folks trying to sell Pi being distributed on a schedule. We even received reports of people claiming that they were partially fundraising for charitable causes while in essence selling Pi. And there's no verification that the portion of the funds intended for donation were actually delivered to those causes. All of these reports ultimately fuel additional bad behavior when organizations and institutions can then claim that they have Pi to sell, such as in these unauthorized offerings of Pi. As you can see in this example, there's a apparent trade between Pi Network and USDT. And in this second example, there's some kind of group buying scheme of Pi, right, with a 20% discount, all of which are completely unauthorized sales.